I didn't really know what wealth management was or what a hedge fund was. I head up the sustainable investment team for one of the largest European banks here, focusing on the wealth management side. But it was the opportunity for me to meet with, the Citadels, the Millenniums. They were already there, right? All those different kind of super high caliber, high pedigree investors. A little bit intimidating, but so much for me to learn. I spent the whole weekend studying that pitch book. And I'm like, wow, this is so cool. I moved to another private bank to do more research on hedge funds, meeting all these hedge fund managers in the US, in Asia. I did my CFA at the same time.
How tough was that? I've heard it's not easy.
It's not easy, but it's a great experience that I would recommend. I was born in Paris.
Okay.
I had the opportunity from a very young age to live in the US, which explains this.
Yeah.
Although I've spent almost 10 years in the UK, because at the time the hedge fund industry was still a cottage industry. So it wasn't as big as it is now. Clients were starting to get interested. It was mainly institutional clients, and then more and more wealth management clients. If you don't ask for it, you won't get it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I started Muay Thai a few years ago.
When you've done it, it's
Oh
like,
my
I've
God,
done it.
totally, your energy is so high. And I'm also interested in like longevity and there's a biohacking group, longevity, nutrition. So I am studying a bit more in that space as a hobby.
Eleanor, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
I've been wanting to have you on the show for a long time as part of our sustainability series, but just because you're such an inspirational person.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Can you do me a favor? Can you give a quick intro as to who you are before we turn back the pages of time and get to know you a little bit better?
Sure. So I'm Eleanor. I'm based in Singapore. I've been here for almost 15 years, and I'm currently working in sustainability. I head up the sustainable investment team for one of the largest European banks here, focusing on the wealth management side.
Okay.
So essentially, I have clients, family offices, ultra high net worth individuals transition to low carbon investments.
Amazing. Now, where did you grow up? Where were you born?
I was born in Paris.
Okay.
I had the opportunity from a very young age to live in the US, which explains this.
Yeah.
Although I've spent almost 10 years in the UK and a number of years abroad. Can't get rid of this American accent.
I love it. But it's a mixed accent, right?
People call it mid-Atlantic.
Yeah. But where in the US did you live?
In Michigan.
Oh,
So
wow.
my father was transferred. He used to work for the car industry.
Okay.
So we lived in Detroit or in the suburbs for a few
Wow.
years. And I picked up this accent.
Isn't it crazy how one industry can change and then Detroit now is off the map in terms of what it was known for, which
But
is
you know
cars.
what? So the World Economic Forum are thinking of moving it to Detroit. So
Again.
yeah.
Really? That's amazing. You probably don't know this, but a lot of amazing boxers came out of Detroit.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was like a hotbed back in the day for amazing boxers. And then what? After 10 years, when did
So
you move?
I spent just a couple of years in the U.S., then moved back to Paris. I was educated in France, went to the whole kind of education system in France. Went to university outside of Paris,
Okay.
the Champagne region, which is lovely. Studied finance, and then worked for 1 year in Paris. And there's just like a lot of other French people at the time. That was pre-Brexit.
Yeah.
So whoever worked in finance was French. It was a great opportunity to jump on the Eurostar and move to London. So I moved to London quite early on in my career.
Where did you live initially? I'm sure you lived in a few places.
I lived in Camden town.
Okay. Very hip, very trendy.
Yes, I loved it.
Yeah.
Then in Hampstead,
Okay.
and then South Kent, like a lot of other Europeans and French people.
Yeah.
So different parts of London.
You know, the thing is, even though I'm from London, what you're describing is completely different from where I grew up. I grew up in Southall and Harrow. Southall's a migrant area. So on my street, there were mainly South Asians. There was 110 families. There were 2 non-brown families, a Jamaican family and my family. And I'm half Chinese, half Irish.
Right.
So it was very different. And then like traveling to central London, for me, it was a big thing. It was like, wow, we're going on holiday kind of thing. But
Wherever you live in London, the commute is just so long, so it feels like you're on an expedition.
It does. Yeah. It really does. You're absolutely right. And then tell us about your journey in London. Like, what was your first role?
So when I moved to London, I was looking for a job, and then I interviewed with a Swiss private bank, so
Okay.
UBS, and this person who was interviewing me gave me like this pitch book, saying all over it, "There's no free lunch, hedge fund strategies." And then he gave me this pitch book for me to study. And he's like, if you're interested in this, I'll hire you and you can, focus on building the hedge fund advisory business.
Now, did you even know what private banking was at that time?
No, I mean, I think it was such a different world. We didn't really, I mean, of course we had the internet, we had emails, but it was the access to information like it is now was, so limited.
Yeah.
So when I went to, studied finance at university, you study financial accounting and stuff like that, but you don't really study the different businesses, asset management, wealth management, and, corporate and institutional banking. So, so I didn't really know what wealth management was or what a hedge fund was. So I spent the whole weekend studying that pitch book. And I'm like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah.
It was after LTCM.
Okay.
So there was a business case, case study on LTCM, hide and win bust. So I thought, this is so interesting. I think I'm going to learn a lot in this space.
Did you have anyone to speak to about whether or not this was a good career move, or it was just a decision you made on your own?
I think I was just so intrigued by this whole space and all the different strategies, from long, short, macro, CTA, relative value. I mean, it was just so new to me that I thought, let's just try it out. And UBS was, a big name already then, right, in private banking.
Yeah, it was at the forefront, right?
Yeah.
So, and then unpack that. So then what happened? So you started the job. Was it what you thought it would be?
So it was a little bit intimidating because at the time the hedge fund industry was still a cottage, industry. So it wasn't as big as it is now. And it was starting to develop in the UK. I don't think there were many, in Asia, it was, people were not allocating it. But in the UK, clients were starting to get interested. It was mainly institutional clients, and then more and more wealth management clients. And, but it was the opportunity for me to meet with, the Citadels, the Millenniums. They were already there, right? All those different kind of super high caliber, high pedigree investors.
Yeah.
So a little bit intimidating, but so much for me to learn.
Well, think about it. It was not just a new job; it was a new city, a new lifestyle, right?
Yes.
All at once.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. And then, how long were you there for?
So I was there for a couple of years, and then I realized that I was speaking to many clients, but I didn't have the depth, to really, articulate those different hedge fund strategies as a way, in a way that I was comfortable and I felt credible in front of clients.
Yeah.
So I moved to another private bank to do more research on hedge funds. So not just, as a product specialist, but really doing all the due diligence, meeting all these hedge fund managers in the US, in Asia, all over the world, and doing in-depth investment analysis or due diligence on these hedge fund strategies.
Yeah.
So I did that for a number of years. I did my CFA at the same time.
How tough was that? I've heard it's not easy.
It's not easy, but it's a great experience that I would recommend, to anyone who wants to work in finance. I think it's a kind of great foundation.
And you've done various things, because I know you've done your MBA at INSEAD.
Yes.
Tell us about some of your.
I'm a bit of a degree junkie.
Yeah, you big time. So walk us through it, because Harvard, INSEAD. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I believe in lifelong learning. I think.
Me too.
Really what keeps you on your toes. And now the world is it's so fast evolving that you need to keep up to speed with what's happening. And now it's all about AI, right? So, but financial markets are evolving. Sustainable finance, when I went to INSEAD 10 years ago, I think we only had one elective
I bet.
impact.
Yeah,
That's it.
Barely existed.
And now I was there, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, and the dean was telling me that 40% of the modules or electives are around sustainability, so sustainable finance, energy transition, impact investing, sustainable investment. So all that has been integrated into
It's been a paradigm shift in the way.
Yeah.
Do you feel a lot of banks greenwash the whole concept of sustainability?
I think some banks took shortcuts.
Yeah.
And so, of course, we all remember the news a few years ago and some asset managers that were, caught into this. But I think since regulations have become tougher, certainly, in Asia, it's not as regulated as it is, in Europe, for instance. But there's a framework, and the ADB, I think it was in 2022, came up with guidelines for wealth managers to have a framework in place.
Yeah.
be able to classify all the different investment strategies, and be able to articulate, the strategies to client. And so there's also these compulsory modules that RMs or client advisors have to take, on carbon
Oh,
markets.
really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, carbon markets, sustainable investment management, and a couple others.
Yeah.
And so I'll be
Makes
lecturing
perfect
on that
sense.
at the Wealth Management Institute, actually.
Well,
So-
let's go back to some of your education choices. Like when you were sitting down, were all of these self-funded? Did you decide to, or why did you decide to go where you went and study what you wanted? Because
Yeah.
I find it interesting because a lot of people stop self-learning
Yes.
as they get older, and I just think, why? Why would you? It's a lifelong endeavor.
Oh, absolutely. So some were funded by, my CFA was compulsory in the job I had at the time, right, which is
Okay.
great. But others were also self-funded. And actually now, I mean, if you're a PR, if you're Singaporean here,
Yeah.
a lot of these courses will be, if you pass
They're
a course.
subsidized, right?
Yeah.
Which
So
is
it's a
great.
great opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember years ago, before I set up my own company, I wanted to do a diploma in compensation. And then I thought, you know what, I might double it up and do one in benefits because I was learning about HR. And my boss said, you're being a bit greedy. You're looking to do two. And I said, I've called everyone in the business development team globally, and I'm the only person that's asked to do training development. And I said, these are after hours. And he goes, well, what happens if I say no? I said, well, I'm still going to do it. Right. And he said, okay, I like the conviction. But I'm always amazed because, what you learn is just going to empower you tomorrow.
Totally.
And
it changes your perspective. And also, it's also the opportunity to meet with other people. When I went to INSEAD,
yeah,
there's consultants, there's lawyers, there's doctors, surgeons. It's like,
the alumni is crazy, right?
yeah, and exactly. And then if I realize that if you just hang out with bankers, your
Your mindset is going to be
yes.
limited.
Yeah, it's just.
Have you? This is an idea that I had yesterday that I'm thinking of doing. But do you do anything with the alumni? Will you meet up for a lunch like once a quarter or anything? Has that happened yet?
Yeah, we do. We have a very tight-knit group here in Singapore, so we catch up at least once a month.
Really?
Yeah.
That often?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we also, and the beauty of INSEAD is that they also have what we call leadership development groups.
Yeah.
So you're in small groups of 4 and 5. And we get a coach when we're going through the program.
Amazing.
And then we stay very close, with that.
Have
group.
any business dealings or interactions come from a result of the alumni? Yeah, because they're so diversified, the group.
Well, we try. I mean, not yet. I mean, nothing has materialized yet. But the beauty is that if I want to speak to anyone in the network on anything,
Yeah,
I know
that
I
resource.
know I'll have the opportunity, and I know that that person will just spend time, and we'll have a coffee and
Super powerful.
yeah. So I'm also interested in like longevity and there's a biohacking group.
Is there?
So yeah, so we
Really?
caught up and then we exchanged, ideas on, and
Talk a little bit
strategies.
about that. What are your thoughts? Because like now people are saying they want to live to 150, and it is interesting. So you do any biohacking? I mean, you look amazing, but what are you doing, or what are you
Thanks.
researching?
So it's an interesting question. And so I think there's different views on this. I think it's great to do biohacking, but you need the foundation first.
Yeah.
And just to give you an example, I know I have a lot of colleagues who take NMN, which is, fine, right? But
Really?
if
We're
you're
in Asia, or
yeah.
can you get it over the counter? Or do you
Yeah.
have to get it prescribed?
I think you have to. I mean, you can buy it online. I mean, it's
Really?
But if you don't have a number of hours of sleep, that you need. I mean, and you would know it's
Yeah.
everyone's different. If you're not working out on a regular basis, you're not looking after your diet.
Yeah.
You can't kind of NMN your way out of a healthy lifestyle,
No.
diet, sleep. So
But think about this, right? Because I don't think there's no bank that has this. But if a bank had a performance coach and then I had a biohacking coach, and basically you've got an elite group of killers really optimized fully, wouldn't it increase performance?
totally. So that's why I got started, and into this space.
Yeah.
So first of all, I mean, in my family, we were never, my mother, like, if I was hungry, she's like, oh, I'll have a cookie, which is, not the way to go about nutrition, right? I mean,
Yeah. I still love cookies, though.
yeah, but not like at 4 p.m. when it kind of spikes your blood sugar levels, and then you
Yeah.
have high energy for 30 minutes, and then, you go crashing for the the next two. So we didn't have my parents didn't really know what macros, micros were, and again, it was a different time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't have access to all the information that we have then, right? So I wasn't really brought into nutrition.
So when did that journey and that love affair
But
start?
I remember in Singapore having brunch one day with a group of friends, and there was this athlete who was running marathons and doing Ironman, and he was like, "Okay, today I'm going to have cherries, and then I'm going to have that. At this time, I'm going to have precision eating
Yeah.
diet." And I'm like, "Wow, he knows exactly what he needs to eat in order to be at his
And
best."
when?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why are we not also wired like that? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm going to have carbs for lunch, how is that going to impact
Yeah.
the way I make some decisions in the afternoon? Or should I have protein for lunch and fiber? And is that going to influence, the way I lead and make, investment decisions or decisions more generally?
Yeah.
So that got me, thinking. And then there's life events, right? Things happen, and then you're like, oh wow, maybe if I had adjusted my lifestyle, prioritized my sleep,
Yeah.
adjusted my my stress.
So how you handle problems and
Yeah.
see, I didn't know we were going to go in this direction, but you're doing and taking sustainability in a whole different dimension. Think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So if you want to build a more sustainable world, you also have to sustain yourself, right? You also
100%.
have to, look after yourself, and that's where the convergence is, really.
So then after that, when did you start? Because a lot of people may not know, but tell the audience members what you like to do in Joo Chiat sometimes at the weekends.
So, okay. So Joo Chiat is amazing. I moved there 2 years ago.
Yeah. It's a hub, right? It's for so many things.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's amazing coffee shops and restaurants, and but there's also a lot of amazing studios. So you have your yoga, Pilates studios, and Muay Thai. So I started Muay Thai a few years ago, in addition to other sports that I do.
Yeah.
And it's been a journey. I mean,
It's tough.
It's tough.
It's really tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
But
But do you feel empowered physically? Do you feel different?
oh, I feel amazing after. I
Yeah.
do it every Sunday morning.
Yeah.
At 8 a.m. And it's tough to get out of bed so early on a Sunday. And
But when you've done it, it's
oh
like,
my
I've
God,
done it.
totally, your energy is so high, and you're able to, to plan your day and be so productive,
Yeah.
even on a Sunday.
My,
So I love it.
my mother threw me into Muay Thai. So my dad was a builder, and he helped build the Thai temple in Wimbledon in London. And I started studying Muay Thai unknowingly with the monks. I was very young. And then when I was 14, I got into a little bit of trouble in school. I had a big mouth. I'd always had a big mouth. And my mum said, right, we're gonna find the meanest, toughest martial art, because I'd done all other martial arts and I was doing very well at them. So I went into Muay Thai, and she said, you can do anything you want to beat him up, but just don't hit his face because he's wearing braces. And I remember this like it was yesterday. So it was an old nightclub, and it smelled of cigarettes and stenched beer on the carpet. But there was a wooden platform that was the dance platform. And the instructor said, right, all of you do push-ups on your knuckles. And based on how many push-ups you could do, he would determine which class you would go to. And I was 14. And I remember I did 125 in a row. And he was kind of blown away. And he said, right, you're in the advanced class. And I was really cocky. And I said, okay, let's do a bit of sparring. And I was sparring two brothers. They were 18, they were twins. And the guy kicked me in the leg, in the calf. And I went down, and I stayed down for about 10 minutes. And I was close to crying. If I didn't have a big ego, I would have been crying. And I just thought, I love this. I've got to learn this. Because in all the other martial arts I'd done, it was not that physical. The Muay Thai, there's nowhere to hide, right?
No, you have to be fit, and there's all that conditioning. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was brilliant. And what other things do you do then?
So I do Pilates as well. I also train as an instructor. So I have my little reformer at home, which is like my little luxury item.
Wow. And not enough men do Pilates. I do Pilates, and I think men overlook it. I don't know why. And you know what? It looks
a lot
easy.
of athletes, like apparently David Beckham does Pilates, and it's a great complement to other sports.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's really brilliant. The first time I did it, I took my wife on my birthday to a class. It was a private class, just the two of us. and it looks easy, and you start doing it, you realize, and especially if I'm very stiff, I'm not very flexible, but I think it's wonderful. And then tell me now, so your other coaching, because you're doing coaching with the Wealth Management Institute?
So I'm about to lecture with the Wealth Management Institute on different sustainable, finance topics.
Okay.
I also train as an executive coach.
Okay. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I got into it because a very good friend of mine from INSEAD, after INSEAD, did this coaching program it was also a lot about personal development. And I was so fascinated and intrigued by what she was sharing. I'm like, oh my God, I need to try it for myself. So it was a great learning journey because it gave me the opportunity, that was before COVID, just to kind of pause and self-reflect and better, define my values. So I think we all need a bit of that, because sometimes we're just, caught in our careers and our journey, and we're not really taking enough time to pause and have that perspective to, then further our career. So then, I started coaching.
Which coaching program did you do?
I did the New Ventures West coaching program.
How did you choose that? Because there are so many different ones. It's like, how do you narrow it down?
So, and INSEAD also have apparently a very good coaching, masters.
I've heard, yeah.
I did it because they're my great friend had did that. I had done that one, and I went for one of the open day. I think it was on a Saturday morning, and I was coached, and so I could see their method, and it's integral coaching. So they don't want to coach a problem; they want to coach the whole person.
I love that.
So it really goes deep into who you are as a person, your background.
And by the way, that's often overlooked, because a lot of the time when companies come to me to do coaching, and let's say we're trying to help an executive, they think a couple of hours will solve it. And I said, no, your childhood, your whole life, it carries through. Yeah. And
your blind spots, your patterns, you're probably not even aware of that, right?
So, so interesting. And then I would imagine that's been very rewarding for you.
It's been super rewarding. And it also gave me the opportunity to broaden my network. So, of course, from the finance network to the INSEAD network and, different kind of worlds, I went into the coaching world, which sometimes can be a little bit, woo-woo and so different from what you're used to in finance.
Yeah.
But it's really nice to have, those different networks.
Have you been able to apply it in a work context with your colleagues or...
Yeah,
because you're using it every day. But
yeah,
I'm just
because
curious.
I think managing a team, being a leader, you need those coaching skills, right? And sometimes you're not trained for that. And usually the way it works in corporate is that if you're doing very well, you're being promoted. Oftentimes you're being promoted to a manager, but you may not have the management skills
and there's
and
no
the coaching
training for
skills,
that.
and there's no training for it.
Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah,
it's crazy. I wanted to share something because you asked me off camera. So 90% of my company's revenue is still on the search side, 10% is on the coaching side, and then the podcast is separate. But what I find interesting is, so just over 96% of the people we've ever placed, except retirees, over the last 20 years are still working where we placed them. And I always say the ROI is pretty outstanding, right? So some of the colleagues that we've placed in your organization, they've been there 15, 17 years. But what a lot of the CEOs or heads of HR may not know, that those individuals come to me for coaching later in terms of how do they further their career in their current organization. And as you said, you're an independent contributor and now you're a manager. How do you leave that independent contributor thought process behind and embrace that leadership quality? And that's a whole new journey.
Yeah, exactly. So from what to how and who, I mean, that's kind of the transition, right?
What I find fascinating about you, you're a Renaissance woman. You've tried so many different things and keep trying new things. Where do you get the courage to do that and the drive and the ambition?
I think I'm super curious, and I think, and actually when I went to INSEAD, I remember taking this entrepreneurship course, and the top course at Harvard is on happiness, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's number one,
Really?
the science of happiness. And so in that course at INSEAD, we also, studied happiness, and there was this amazing study by these, I think it was some nuns, or not nuns or nurses, I can't remember. I mean, in Australia, and so they were recorded to share what, the patients on their deathbed were sharing with them,
Yeah.
and their biggest regrets, and a lot of them, is working too hard, not spending enough time with, with family, friends, and also not taking enough risk,
That's
not
the
being
one.
bold enough, right?
That comes through.
Yeah. And so for me, the ideal life would be having the opportunity to try many different things and having the experience of all those different possibilities, right?
Yeah.
Um,
The challenge is the dichotomy is when we're in our, like, let's say 30s, 40s, and if we're blessed to have children, that's the time that you need to be present. But that's the time where you're really building your career, and life's kind of upside down. In theory, when you're older, hopefully you have some money, but you're probably too old to enjoy a sports car because you can't get in and out of it, right?
Yeah.
And you've got all this time and money,
Yeah.
but you don't have the health. And I just think life's completely upside down. And when I do career coaching, one of the questions is, the two questions that I really find interesting, the answers to, is like, what was the best quarter of your career thus far? Don't define it by AUM or revenue if you're a banker, or by earnings, but in terms of, how were you being challenged, driven? And quite often the answer is years ago. And I find that's because when you're younger, you've been stretched.
yes.
When you get into your late 40s or mid 40s, at that point, it's like everything's status quo, for some, and that doesn't make sense. You should be stretching yourself all the time. And why I say that's a really important question to ask yourself is, if you're going to stay in your current organization or make a move, you want to find a way to inject those experiences into your role. You need to recapture that. And then the other question is, what might you regret 20 years from now?
Yes.
If you don't do this, or if you do something.
Yeah.
And quite often the irony is, a lot of the people that end up moving, that are my career coaching clients, I might not move, and they might get a job on their own. I say, go and have a chat with your bosses now that you've got the confidence, even before you resign. And 9 times out of 10, they got what they couldn't get before because they don't care,
They
because they've got
couldn't
another
ask for
job.
it. They didn't want to ask for it.
Yeah. So fear just gets in the way, and I just find that so interesting.
Yes.
Um,
So just to that, so I
Yeah.
mentor a lot of students from INSEAD, but also a lot of students from NUS, SMU. I also lecture on sustainability with some of these universities.
okay.
And that's these students ask me, questions on, what guidance can you give me, any advice, and that's what I tell them, like, you have to be intentional in your choices, and in order to be intentional, you have to know what you want. So and taking those risks to achieve what you want. So to your point,
Well, talk about that, because you've had the privilege and you took the risk. You've worked in the UK, Switzerland, now Singapore. Talk to me about that, because I find a lot of people, when they get the opportunity to move abroad when they're younger, if they don't take it, it never materializes later on. Because what happens is, you get married, you have kids, and quite often you get stuck, right? Talk about the courage and the thought process behind that.
sure. So to what we were saying earlier, I spent a few years in the UK. After that role, I moved to Credit Suisse, where I set up the Hedge and advisory business. So that was before the financial crisis.
And that was a very dynamic organization, for those that don't know.
It was super,
Yeah.
rightly or wrongly,
Yeah.
but it was super entrepreneurial, and they wanted to build a business to compete with, to TBS on the hedge fund side.
Yeah.
So it was such a great experience, because I got to build something from scratch, hire people, build a team, build a business, and we did very well. I started focusing on the UK, and then it expanded to Europe, to Asia, setting up the hedge and advisory business. Then the financial crisis hit.
Yeah. Game changer.
Yeah. So CS did pretty well during the financial crisis. And even on the hedge fund side, of course, it was a very difficult time. But we were very rigorous in how we allocated, and there was no asset liability mismatch.
Okay.
So like a lot of our competitors at the time, we didn't really have to gate or side pocket. We were very conscious of liquidity and raised a lot of cash. I piled into CTAs and macro strategies. end of 2007, early 2008. So I was, quite happy with, my markets were down like 50, 60%.
Yeah.
My portfolios were down between 9 and, 14, 15%.
Okay.
So pretty remarkable, in the context.
Yeah, for sure.
But unfortunately, because a lot of our clients, wealth management clients, were gated and side-pocketed, elsewhere, they needed the liquidity. So we were treated as an ATM, because that's where, they could get, the cash back.
Yeah, that must have been tough.
It was tough, but it was such a great learning experience, how to, this book, how to handle difficult conversations.
No, I haven't heard of it. It's a good one.
It's good.
So you became a master in that.
Yeah, so you have to, it's like how to deliver, bad messages, negative news,
Yeah.
how to be transparent in a
I'll check that
constructive
book
way.
out.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you, because what I'm really curious about, you've run basically what is a relatively small upcoming asset class and department, right, vis-a-vis the other asset classes. How do you lead the charge on that? How do you have the courage to put a spotlight on what is a growing and booming area like sustainability? Because that can't be easy.
No, but sustainability, so it became popular in Asia, or probably not the right word, but it started to gain in prominence in Asia after Europe.
Yes.
So we had the experience of what had been done, in Europe, and then to bring it to Asia. But regulations were changing. I think clients, and especially the next generation, were much more self-aware than previous generations. They were also willing, or they are also willing to align, their investments with their own values, because they're able to define that more than our parents, were.
Yeah.
So we could see that transition, in trends.
And what are some of the biggest misconceptions about sustainability, especially in the banking world?
Yes, there's a few.
A lot, I would imagine.
Yeah. So the first one is that sustainability equals philanthropy, which it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so that's what when I lecture on sustainable investments, that's the first thing I tell students, is that sustainable investments require performance.
Yeah.
It's not charity, right? So there's different types of sustainable investments.
Yeah. You were liking it to making money, right?
Yeah. So
that's what people don't
exactly
recognize.
It's traditional investment with a sustainable lens. So you will, for ESG integration strategy, so you will do your have your investment process, portfolio construction process as you would, but you also have that sustainable or ESG lens in addition to the more traditional way of valuing assets or investments. Thematic investments will be aligned to the different SDGs, and then impact, you will want to be more additional, intentional, also be able to measure that impact.
What I'm also curious about is because most of the senior management that are above you may be less familiar with sustainability, especially when you started in that area. So in other words, globally or regionally, you're leading the charge in that area. You're having to educate everyone, including your bosses.
Yes.
That can't be easy either.
No, it's not easy.
Because I would imagine, that you might, get some negative kickback at times. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, I think Singapore has been super forward-looking.
Yeah.
Because for those, in Singapore, whether you're the CEO of a wealth management, a private bank here, or if you're, a private banking assistant, as long as you're client-facing, you have to go through those sustainability training. So there's that foundation already, which I think, has opened the eyes of a lot of, client-facing people, relationship managers, investment advisors on this strategy.
And I think in your current organization, it helps that the CEO has an investment product background.
Yes.
So he'll have an appreciation perhaps for it as an asset class in a very, unique way.
Yeah, and I'm fortunate. So I work for a French bank, and in France, people put a lot of emphasis on science, right? On math, on physics, on science in general. So a lot of the senior managers in French banks a lot of them will have an engineering background.
Yeah.
So they also understand the science, of climate change, right? Climate science, right? And so the impact that this could have on their operations, on their business,
It's huge.
if they don't, change the way they lend, the way they recommend their clients to invest, right?
By the way,
that has made it.
I've analyzed that because when you look at the majority of the best structured products people in private banking, a large percentage, they're French or they're Indian.
That's right.
That's it. These guys rule the world. And what other myths can you tell us about, sustainability?
That sustainability equals CSR.
Okay.
So there's outward and inward sustainability, right? So a lot of people still in this part of the world think that by doing a beach cleanup on a weekend, you're contributing. I mean, of course, it's great to do that, but it's so they only see that. And I think a lot of people miss the huge commercial opportunity around sustainability.
Yeah.
So as we were saying earlier, I went to business school. I went to INSEAD. I spent some time in the Silicon Valley, thinking how entrepreneurs, build businesses, and usually it's around pain points.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pain points today, that are bringing up a lot of investment opportunities, new innovations to make the world more sustainable. And so I think bridging all the different, or connecting all the different dots between the science of, climate change with different, the pain points that will bring. And then in addition, on top of that, all the investment opportunities that come along, right? And so you're seeing a lot of private equity firms invest into, these different types of sustainable opportunities.
Which is very exciting. Yeah, I find because, when I look at the alternatives in private equity space, it's been redefined, in the last 10, 15 years. 15 years ago, it didn't exist in most private banks. It was not an asset class. And now it's a prominent part of the genetic DNA of what, private banking is selling. How do you align your personal beliefs and balance those with the corporate beliefs? Because the two might, they're inextricably linked, but you may have to differentiate your thoughts at some point, right?
Yes, but also that's one of the reasons why I transitioned into sustainability. So it happened during COVID. COVID was a great kind of stress test for all of us. It gave us the opportunity to pause, self-reflect, redefine, the path forward. Yeah. And so at the time, I was running the product and distribution team for Credit Suisse on the asset management side here in Asia. So working with a lot of private banks, third-party private banks, institutional clients, and more of the funds that we were launching and distributing were aligned to super trends. So we had an education fund, we had a health tech fund. So, and I didn't at the time. I mean, it was pretty sad, but I didn't know what an SDG was. I just knew about all these super trends, mega trends and thematic investments. So during COVID, it was a great opportunity for me to pause and do a bit of studying and understand, the opportunities that those kind of the SDGs could bring as well from an investment point of view. A lot of
people, by the way, didn't maximize the opportunity that COVID presented. It was difficult because we didn't know where it was going. But I always say, like in terms of fitness, you ended up, a chunk or a hunk. You had a choice. You had a choice. Are you going to do something? Yeah. But I felt like I got at least 2 hours of my life back because normally I'll be driving the kids to school and whatnot, and use it to better yourself, further education. I find a lot of women I work with on the career coaching side, they struggle with that balance and they kind of mute themselves at times. And I say, why? Why not lean into being a dynamic, strong, professional woman leading the charge in your business area?
So I don't really think about that. I mean, I'm too oblivious, but for me, it's more about maximizing my competence. Okay. And that's why I think I do a lot of the side training and the lifelong learning and whatever opportunity comes up, I will assess it and jump at it or not, depending on the assessment. So I don't really. How do
you balance? Because I always feel that it's changing now. But if you're a CEO, you're a male leader, you can be a ball buster, and it's okay. But for a woman, it's very difficult. You're operating between two lines. Where if you're too aggressive, it's negative. If you're too soft, people will take advantage of you. And I find that that's a very difficult line to walk.
That's true. I think that, and it was probably even more true, that a few years ago,
Yeah.
maybe 20 years ago. But I think there's been different movements, right?
It's
And
changing.
it's changing. And I think especially in Asia,
Yeah.
I don't feel the same pressure perhaps as in Europe or other
It's
parts of the
interesting
world.
because my wife's an academic, and I always said, why don't you dress like you do when we go out for work? She said, no, that's not how academics do. And I said, I think that's your superpower. It's you're a beautiful woman. You're great at speaking. And she said, no, it's different. I said, if I was you, I would go all in. I would cash in on it. And no, because I think you work for a French bank, and having that je ne sais quoi and that style, it goes hand in hand, right? It's very interesting. Catherine Deneuve is one of my favorite
Oh, is she?
actors.
Okay.
You remind me of Catherine
Oh,
Deneuve.
thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
she was a very elegant lady. Let's do some rapid fire questions if you don't mind. I want to ask you a few things. So, in terms of executive and team coaching, what can you share with the audience members that will really help them in their careers if they're plateauing or they're going through a hard time and they're trying to take stock of what to do next?
Yes. And I learned that from a coach, actually, which I think is
Please share.
amazing, is you have to be intentional. So you have to know what you want. I mean, if you don't know what you want, it's really difficult to get it by definition, right?
But how do so a lot of people don't know how do you nail it down?
So you have to define your values. What are your values? What makes you tick? Like, what gives you energy and drive and passion? And so do a bit of that type of work, and try and see where you would want to be in the next 5 to 10 years. Not necessarily in a role in a job, but what life would you want to lead?
Yeah.
And then if you're able to reverse engineer, so if I need to be there in 5 years' time, what do I need to do, in 4 years to be, like achieve what I want in 5 years, and then in 3 years, in 2 years, in 1 year, in 6 months, in 1 week, today, and then what do I need today to go where I want to be in 5 years?
Yeah.
And of course, things change, life happens, things you can't control. But as long as you have that kind of path and you're able to adjust and kind of know what you want, I think it's
It's very powerful.
yeah.
Yeah.
And my boss in London used to tell me, Eleanor, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. So
Yeah. No, but it's interesting because I think we're so busy on that conveyor belt in life and in work that it's difficult to take stock, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, I mean, of course, my business, we make our livelihood on headhunting people. But I always say to people, that's fine, but should you really make a move because you get a phone call internally or externally? I think you should map out where you want to go and plan it.
Yeah.
So it's no different if you're a business developer and if you want to work with these 3 organizations, target the people you want to work with within the organizations, go and meet with them.
Yes, absolutely.
But people don't
Be
do
bold.
that in their
You
career.
have to be bold and audacious, and sometimes people don't allow themselves to be bold.
Especially in Asia. When I first moved to Singapore in 2001, it took me 7 years to learn that yes, yes, yes was actually no. In Hong Kong, it was different. I always say, I'll kick you out of an office. But Singapore, no one would say no. So I always teach my sales guys now, learn to bring the no forward. Let people know it's okay. If you're not interested, it's okay. And then I work with 3 private banks at the moment, teaching their most senior private bankers how to sell. And there are a few things that I find really interesting in the way that the private bankers do not think about selling. Because I personally don't think most private bankers have ever studied selling. I think they were hunters maybe initially early on in their career, but they've been working with the same clients for 10, 20 years. So I talk about how do you systematically get referrals, when, how to ask, who to ask. Timing is really important. And of course, that's built on trust and foundation. But then the other concept I always teach people is the art of selling without selling.
Oh, yeah.
Because the reality is, as an advisor, beyond the initial, hi, how you doing, and making that pitch, and then closing, actually, everything is born in terms of trust, right? And you're sharing with people, what not to do sometimes. Maybe that's too aggressive. And I feel that most private bankers actually are a little bit, they're afraid. They're afraid. Like, I would have no problem saying to my client, I want to be your number 1 private banker. Who else are you banking with? I want to run the majority of your book, right? And I feel that most people are afraid to do that. And I don't understand why, because 9 times out of 10, their clients are going to be entrepreneurs and they're all about winning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
That's
I think
true.
that goes hand in hand, but it's an interesting balance.
Yeah.
When mentoring younger professionals, what qualities do you encourage them to develop beyond the technical skills?
Taking risk.
Yeah. Give us a few examples.
Not being afraid to reach out to people. And actually, one of the person that one of the people I hired in my team in Hong Kong was through LinkedIn. He was, in a different firm before, which was going through some restructuring, and he reached out. We had a conversation, but
Brilliant.
he it's you have to take that risk, send that message, go for that coffee.
Isn't that so powerful? Just inviting someone for a conversation and a coffee, and kudos to that individual for doing it.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love that. And you know what? Maybe now, we're too old for this, but kids now are growing up with dating apps.
Yes.
Right. There was no such thing as an app back then, but just reaching out the old-fashioned way is pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I like that. Let's talk about understanding quality. What's the most underestimated quality for you in great leaders?
I'd say empathy.
Yeah, I was going to say kindness. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And also listening skills.
Yeah. What is it? I've observed this, and apart from a handful of very, very senior leaders, I think when most people get very senior, they almost stop listening.
Yes.
Why is that? I always find that peculiar.
I'm not sure. I think not everyone, right? But
Not
but
everyone.
I think maybe when you've reached that level of seniority and leadership,
Yeah.
you're in your comfort zone, and maybe and you might think that that's you don't need to get the feedback, or you don't need to hear it from other people.
It's so interesting. I was telling my team just before you started today, why is this camera set up this way? And Gautam, is our new media producer, said, well, we've always had it that way. That's what I was taught. And I said, yeah, but I've hired you because you're technically superior to what we were doing before. Isaac and I didn't know, we were learning. And I said, I want to hear your ideas. And the thing about ideas is, even if you present them 10 times and your boss is only taking one of them, that one might make a difference. Don't be afraid to keep doing that.
Yeah.
I love that. What's harder, building something new or sustaining something that's established?
I think both are equally tough.
Yeah.
And you have to know when you want to build and when you want to sustain, or when stop building, sustaining, maintaining, preserving.
Yeah.
So it's a skill.
Building's more fun.
Yeah.
But it's keeping it going. It's not easy
No,
either.
on building, I mean, I'll give you an example. So since we talked about hedge funds earlier,
Yeah.
It's great to build and a new hedge fund and raise assets, but you have to know when to stop taking in more money in, because it will you'll have performance attrition. I mean, you might have style drift, and so you want to know when is a good size. Same for any business.
Yeah. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Which global trends excite you most in finance today?
Ooh, well, I work in sustainability, so I have to say, there's a lot of things happening in sustainability. Carbon markets,
Okay.
a lot, happening in this space, and Singapore want to be, the hub for carbon markets.
Yeah.
So that's super interesting.
Do you deal with MAS a lot in these discussions?
Yeah, so there's the Singapore Sustainable Finance Association, and they have different streams, including one on carbon markets, but also one on blended finance.
Yeah.
Impact.
So interesting.
Yeah, which is developing, probably not fast enough, but
But when you look at the landscape of what you do in private banking, in my mind, you really stand out. Most private banks do not have someone of your level of seniority leading the charge. Does it not surprise you?
yes and no. Well, I think it's also because there's a lot of geopolitical tension, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, things happening in other countries and the other side of, of the world. And so there's been a bit of an ESG, backlash. These conversations have been more, trickier with clients, because what's going to happen with tariffs? What's going to happen with the Fed chairman? There's all these uncertainties. There's so much volatility right now in markets.
Yeah.
that we're seeing a little bit of cautious around
Yeah,
sustainability.
you can definitely see that.
Yeah.
What's a piece of advice that you'd give to young women in finance coming up through business?
I would say find your sponsor or your mentor
Yeah. It's,
in the organization or
it's,
outside the organization.
yeah, both is so important. And people forget that, by the way. I feel that most people in their careers so focused within their organization that, and the reason why you should look outside is, number one, you get some objectivity, but also because other people in other organizations do things differently.
Yes.
And that could be beautiful to learn from.
Exactly.
I placed in a bank a CIO, a head of DPM, a head of managed investments, and a market head. And I invited all these ladies around to dinner. And as soon as I did, I thought, are you drunk? These are seriously powerful women, and they might beat me up. And my wife was there as well. But what I was trying to say to them was, all the guys are playing golf every other weekend.
Yeah.
They're going on holidays. And all of these ladies are going home, and they've been great mums, and they're Asian wives. But it was almost, I feel in some organizations, there's an element of competition created, and it's not real. And I always say, I subscribe to this, a rising tide raises all ships. And the one thing in banks I feel is I just think it's too messy. All banks create so much internal competition. It could be the CEO of Hong Kong versus the CEO of Singapore. And I kind of get that, a bit of internal rivalry, but the reality is the competition is with the other banks on the street. And with a lot of women in particular, I feel that their voice is a little bit muted. So I'm very big on trying to empower the senior. Some of the best people I've ever worked with are women. They're just leading the charge.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that. What's your North Star when you're making really tough decisions?
My North Star would be, would you be comfortable having whatever project, whatever you're working on, make the headlines, today in the FT, right? So lead by example, have moral compass, integrity in whatever, decisions or initiatives that you work on.
That's a great way to think about it. Because I always say to my team that before you press send on that email, remember it might go around the world in 10 seconds.
Well, we know, with all that's happening in the last whatever days.
Crazy, right?
So,
bananas. What's the hardest pivot that you've made in your career? Because you have pivoted a few times. What's the most challenging one been?
I think the hardest one was moving from an allocator investor, so having my own P&L, being able to track, my own performance on a regular basis, to that of no longer running portfolios and managing money into advising and recommending. So being a little bit still of course in the investment world, but no longer kind of directly in charge of generating performance, just recommending.
Do you miss it?
I do a little bit. I really did miss it. when I kind of transitioned.
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, but it's also, there's a lot of dopamine, right? Because it's you get immediate feedback on your investment and whatever decision.
And you keep your finger on the pulse. I've placed a lot of heads of DPM.
Yeah.
And what I found is that those that are COOs, listen, there's nothing wrong. It depends on the ecosystem of that bank and how big they are. But if they're not managing money, is their finger on the pulse in the same way?
Yeah.
Will the clients and bankers truly appreciate who you are? And I'm not so sure. I think you need to be close to the money.
Yeah.
What's the biggest blind spot that you've seen in corporate sustainability strategies?
The biggest would be not appreciating that sustainability is serving your business in the long term. And sometimes banks, corporates have too much of a short-term focus and not reconciling short-term with long-term. So having that vision of something that will better serve their business, serve their clients, performance, risk in the longer term. So not, kind of bringing that back to that.
I always say that's the biggest dichotomy in our business, because the CEO, and it's not their fault, they probably won't be in the job 5 years from now, most companies, and they'll be measured not even annually, it's quarterly.
Yes.
And so how do you balance that? And I know some great guys that are very principled, and they're talking about, look, in 5 years. Yeah, but mate, you need to remember the CEO is just thinking they've got to get us through this year. They might not have a job next year if they don't deliver, and you've got to balance the two.
It's very tricky.
You've got to be commercial at all times and got to stay relevant.
Yeah.
Which sustainability initiative that you've worked on thus far are you most proud of?
So we worked on an outcome bond when I was with my previous employer, called the Rhino Bond. So I'll share the concept, quickly. So it's a 5-year zero coupon bond.
Okay.
And it's a bond that is issued by the World Bank. So typically you'll have your principal, back within 5 years, and you'll get some payment back if you've been able to replenish the population of rhinos in South Africa.
Wow.
So that was really cool. I mean, it's not something you work on every day, but it's quite innovative. And so we're working on something like that with the same concept, but for coral reefs in Indonesia.
Wow.
So that's one. And then we also...
It's amazing.
Yeah, and we also did something with this female investor when I was in Switzerland. She was based in Brazil, and she wanted to do more with women in Brazil. And so we put together an impact private equity portfolio focusing on impact funds that were helping those girls in
See, those 3 projects are so meaningful.
Yeah.
And you can really look back and say, wow, you've moved the needle there.
Yeah.
Actually, I was in Kenya just over a year ago, and it was the wrong season, but we didn't see a rhino. We saw everything else.
Oh.
And I was gutted. I really wanted to see a rhino in the wild.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. What's a question you wish more CEOs would ask themselves today in the industry?
When's the right time for me to leave
Interesting. Yeah, powerful. What's the proudest career milestone thus far for Eleanor?
I think it would be during the financial crisis. It was tough, and not, being able to preserve. I mean, of course, we lost money, but not as much as our competitors or as the market. So that was great. Piling into macro strategies and raising cash, going into trend followers, CTA, managed futures, which were doing very well, relative value as well to some extent. So there's that. And then there's a few other, when I was at Credit Suisse, about 10 years ago, we raised a lot of assets for a fixed maturity bond fund, more than $3 billion, which was, pretty remarkable.
Fantastic.
And then, the whole kind of industry piled into more fixed maturity bond funds, but it was quite innovative at the time.
It's brilliant. Let's talk about you personally. What's your wellness routine look like today?
Oh, my wellness routine. Okay.
I'm curious.
So I exercise. I try to at least 3 to 4 times a week. So we talked about, Muay Thai, Pilates. I try to do more and more resistance, weight training.
It's important.
Yeah. For bone density, especially for women, in their 40s, right? It's super important. So I do that.
Yeah.
I try to optimize my sleep. I have an Oura ring.
Does it work?
Yeah, it's. I think
do you take it off when you're exercising, doing weights?
No,
I
keep it on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it gives you more awareness around. So now I know exactly what will impact my sleep, my deep sleep, REM sleep. So if I have just one single glass of red wine,
it's going to mess you up.
Yeah, my deep sleep is gone.
So you know what my policy is? Don't have one glass, have one bottle. And just if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. If you ask my wife what would help her sleep, it would be not sleeping next to me. Okay. We know so many couples that are our parents' generation where the husband and wife sleep separately. And I say, is it because the husband snores? And they both snore. It happens, right?
Yeah.
It does happen. And in terms of, I'm just curious, in terms of the resistance training, because I find, this is my I find a lot of people do resistance training, but they haven't really learned the mechanics and why they're doing that particular exercise. They're doing it because they've seen it online or their trainers told them, but they haven't really looked into the biomechanics and the science.
Yeah.
Do you find that that's the case?
That's could be the case, but I had a trainer. I have a trainer, so that helps a lot, right?
How old's your trainer, if you don't mind me asking?
How old?
Yeah, the trainer.
She's in her late 30s.
Yeah, the reason why I ask that is I always, no disrespect to young people, but they're not familiar with injuries. They don't understand, like if a woman's given birth and had a C-section and whatnot. And the other thing that people don't talk about a lot is menopause. So my wife last year, she had 2 really big operations. She had to have a very serious spinal operation, which was really scary. And she needed a fairly urgent hysterectomy like 6 weeks later. So she's going through early menopause now. And I realized no one really talks about it. And
Yeah.
a lot of men are oblivious, you know, and then I'm seeing a lot of marriages come apart.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, is it linked to that and what?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think there's more and more
There's data
studies.
behind
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. And
you
so
know?
I think there's a greater movement now around
It's
perimenopause,
yeah.
premenopause, menopause.
You know,
So
you know,
there's a
it's-
lot more research. I mean, you know the percentage of research around and around women. I mean, it's ludicrous.
Yeah.
So that's changing slowly, but it's still changing.
Yeah, and it's like things like creatine now, you know, it's the
Oh, yeah.
most researched. But it's interesting what you were saying about biohacking. Most people won't even know
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
So to your earlier question. So, and I'll take a lot of, I look after my diet as well. I try to eat protein at every meal.
How do you bring your lunch to work, or how do you do lunch at work?
Oh, typically bring my lunch.
Yeah, but you see, you and I do that, but most people don't. Like,
Yeah.
what percentage of people bring lunch?
I know.
Very, very rarely, right?
Yeah, because I want to know, my
you're putting in.
percentage of protein,
Yeah.
fiber,
And
vegetable.
you're measuring it?
Kind of rough. I mean, roughly.
you've
Yeah,
been
yeah,
doing
yeah.
it
I
long
knew
enough.
like what 3 eggs will be in terms of
Yeah.
and grams of protein and chicken and fish and whatnot.
I
but-
do mess up though, because I love eating and drinking all the bad things. But I find, like, my mum always used to say things in moderation.
Yeah,
You have to enjoy your life.
And then I take like the usual supplements, right, from omega-3.
Yeah.
Which is good for immune system, brain health.
Yeah.
Vitamin C, B complex, vitamin D, which a lot of people are deficient.
You know what I haven't started doing enough of is red light therapy, because
Yes.
I've been reading about that. It says it even improves your eyesight, apparently.
Yeah. So I do that as well.
Okay, so you're all in.
Well, I
Do you
mean,
do cold baths?
I tried. I think so. For women, it's slightly different because it spikes your cortisol level.
Yeah.
So it's not from a kind of inflammation point of view, it's not ideal. But I tried cryo,
Okay.
which I much prefer.
Well, it's in and out 3 minutes, right? Yeah.
But I feel it's easier and oh my God, you have so much energy after. It's just amazing.
What I'm excited to see, and it's not along around the corner, where, for example, banks have these things on site. Think about, people are working crazy hours, sometimes seriously long hours, and you have facilities on site.
So I think some tech companies, right, have.
they have.
I think they had like a napping room.
They don't want you to leave. I mean, that's
Yeah.
another extreme. It's like, you're going to eat here,
Exactly.
sleep here. You don't even need to rent an apartment. We're going to make you
Yeah.
productive 20 hours of the day. If you could master any one new skill tomorrow, because you've already got so many, but what would it be?
I think it would be in the in arts. It would be.
Okay.
I would have loved to learn how to play the piano.
Okay.
I still. I mean, of course, I can take it up, but just being a skill,
Are you musically challenged? Because I know I am. But
I don't know. I was never. My parents, I mean, they really emphasize, languages and which is great, but
Yeah.
not so much, music or sports. But
so listen, you can still do it.
yeah,
you
I
know?
can still do it.
Yeah,
My daughter's doing it, so I'm kind
really?
of I project it on her.
Go with her. Go do a bit with her.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Who has been the most unexpected mentor in your life thus far?
I had amazing bosses, but I never had like a mentor, per se. I had a great network of women in my life. Older, 20, 30 years older, but also much younger.
Yeah.
So being surrounded by these women has really helped me a lot.
You know what's interesting? I love the fact you said you've had some great bosses, because I think most bosses are given a bad time. They're overlooked. And the reality is, it's like school teachers.
Yeah.
You might have a lot of bad ones, but if you have a great one, they transform everything. They give you wonderful opportunities.
Yes.
No.
And they will allow you to grow with them, which is what you want in a boss, right?
This fellow I spoke to yesterday, he's just completing his EMBA, and his boss said to him, "So what are you going to do next?" He goes, "What do you mean? You should get another job now, because if not, why have you wasted that and still being here? You've been here for 10 years. I don't want to see you leave, but I want to see you leave." And I thought, what a great boss. That's so rare.
That's what you want from a boss.
That's
though, right?
what you
Yeah.
want, right? And I remember my first colleague that I hired in my business. 20 years ago. His name's Elton Apps. And he was with me for 9 years. And he said, I think it's time for me to move on. And I said, yeah, listen, I'm gutted you're leaving. You don't need to leave. You'll always have a desk. But I'm happy for you. I'm excited for you at the same time. And I said, you'll know we're really friends, because we'll be friends 10 years from now. And we still are. You know what I mean? But at the time, you just don't know if that's just lip service. What's a book that's had a massive impact on you, or that you've gone back and reread a couple of times?
Oh, well, probably a few years ago. So when I stepped into the world of hedge funds, I was reading all books, whatever books there was on hedge funds. And there was one called When Genius Failed. I don't know if you read that one.
No.
The Rise and Fall of LTCM.
Okay.
Okay, that was like
what
not to do.
And that's important, to learn what not to do.
Yeah, exactly. Hubris, model risk, being over leveraged. We've seen it over and over, right?
Yeah.
But so that one, and then more recently, I'd say Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth.
Okay,
I don't know if you read that one.
you'll come out with 3 books I've not read. That's great.
Oh,
okay.
yeah. So that one's really good on building self-awareness, knowing your ego, managing your ego.
Yeah.
It also talks about your pain bodies, why you might be stuck in the same pattern because you have all that suffering and pain from the past in your pain body, which might kind of blind you in your decisions.
100%. It impacts all of us.
Yeah.
One of the books that I read was that I really enjoyed, but most people that I've spoken to started reading it, never finished it, was Ray Dalio's Principles.
Oh, yeah.
And I like that one because he starts talking about processes, but he talks about patterns. And the thing, I think if you read a really good book, you can then take different parts of it and apply it to different parts of your business. And, that's always made me think about, in sports, I'd always look at patterns. Like when I was boxing, it was like, well, how is that person moving? How do I cut the ring off from them? How do I set traps? And most people, they analyze what went wrong at best. And most people don't even analyze that, but they rarely analyze what went right. So if this went right, well, no, was it luck? Can you replicate it? Can you do it 2 or 3 other ways? And I think when you look at it, and I always say to people, this one person came up to me recently and said, can you coach me? I said, well, let's have a coffee, let's have a chat. And at the end of it, I kind of got out of coaching her because she slammed 3 of her bosses, like really negatively. And 2 of them, I know them, and they're great guys. And I just said, have you ever thought, when you look at the patterns about what went right and wrong in your career, you are the one common denominator, And I just thought she was a walking nutcase.
Yeah.
Like she was so negative.
No self-awareness.
No self-awareness. And you have to be highly introspective. What's a productivity hack or ritual that you can share with us that you apply? Yeah.
Sleep.
How do you deal with...
we had this Next Gen event a few months ago in Hong Kong. And I put together this longevity panel because that's also a topic that, is of interest to the Next Gen, right?
Yeah.
And so I had this personal trainer,
brilliant,
super high-end, from Hong Kong. I had this longevity doctor, and I had this, entrepreneur who's doing something who's kind of energizing the TCM world and making a lot more modern. And anyway, so different kind of backgrounds, perspectives. And I asked them at the end, like, what is the one thing that you would want to share with the audience that you can't compromise on? And they all said sleep.
Yeah, so powerful.
Yeah.
And women need more sleep than men.
Yeah.
And that's, I always laugh because my son's 186 centimeters tall. I'm 168. And again, COVID, we and now with the knowledge that we have, we fed him well. He ate a lot of protein and he had a lot more sleep, and it's made a big difference.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's one value that you refuse to compromise on? Because I can tell in talking to you, and you alluded to this earlier, your values are so intrinsic to who you are. So what's one value?
Freedom.
Love that. Explain that in many different ways. It means many different things,
it means being in charge of your own life, being independent, autonomous, and having agency, at the end of the day.
I love that. Super powerful. That's what I was talking to my colleague the other day, and he's not remotely interested in money, which is great, given what he's a creator. And I was saying to him, well, he's behind the camera now. I was saying to him, money is, your value of money changes as you get older. If you're blessed and you get married and have kids, you'll feel differently about money. But money gives you a certain level of protection, assurance, and freedom.
Yes.
You know, because a lot of people are stuck at work because they feel they need to get paid, and they're imprisoned unknowingly. And I always say to try and think differently, change things.
And then to what we were saying earlier, they might, end up on their deathbed and regretting not having taken whatever risk and not having the life that they really would have liked to have, right?
It's so this year, so I turn 50 next September, and a lot of my friends that have turned 50.
Which day in September?
18th.
Okay.
Why?
I'm a Virgo as well.
Oh, are you? When's yours?
5th.
Okay.
Yeah.
My brother's the 3rd, right?
Okay.
So we're all a bit crazy.
Into Virgo. Okay.
Yeah. So, but what's really interesting is most people, they see, for me, it's an important milestone. So I'm planning now. So the first trip that I've got planned in January next year is I'm going to do a pack rafting trip in New Zealand on my own. It's a 7-day trip. And after that, I'm just working out where exactly. I've just seen this beautiful globe-trotting horse riding in Argentina.
Oh, cool.
And it looks so, I'm not a proficient horse rider. And I think hopefully I'll catch up with some of these guys. But I looked at it, I just thought, it's so breathtaking. Yeah. But I don't want to let it slip, because if you don't do, if not now, then when?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, I love that. What's one thing that you wish that you'd learned earlier in your life that we haven't covered?
I think being more intentional.
Are you wearing a Casio?
Yes.
I love Casios, old school Casios.
Yeah.
I love them. You know what? When I grew up, so I just saw that. I've got that watch in silver.
Okay.
Because actually I couldn't even afford a Casio back then. And we had in England, I don't even remember, the Argos catalogue. Do you remember it?
Oh yeah.
And
I
would look at it. And I had the cheapest Casio, and I've still got that version now. It was like $8, and I never had to change the battery on it for like a decade. But Casio is my favorite brand.
It's a bit retro.
I love it. Yeah. So one thing that you preferred that you wished you learned earlier?
Yeah. So being more intentional.
Yeah.
So I think I was until a certain point.
In your career and life?
Yeah, I think so. It's never too late, right? But it's just
never too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's big. What constantly motivates you today? Because you're learning.
And meeting new people, staying curious, still developing that beginner's kind of mind.
What about, staying on top? Because one of the key things a lot of people say to me, I'm not as motivated as I think I should be. And I always feel that our competition is with ourselves. But I think if you are a competitive person, you know where you stand vis-a-vis other people, but you should always be challenging yourself.
Yes.
Do you think of it like that?
I do. I mean, even when you go for a workout, right? You want to challenge yourself.
Yeah, you have to be. Learning
something new, you challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Taking on a new project, initiative, you challenging yourself.
Yeah.
It's also what makes, the life fun, right? Is having these different challenges and learning from the challenges.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Because quite often people say to me, you've done so many different things. And I just said, because I'm very dyslexic, so I struggle with reading. I'm slow at reading. But on average, I'll read 2 or 3 books at the same time. And people think that's strange.
Oh, no.
And I said, but why? If you read the Sunday newspaper, you read the lifestyle, the business section, and I find it's a little bit more fun. And
totally.
Because sometimes I'll read something that's heavy. I can only read a couple of chapters, and I'll mix it up. And the other thing I find about knowledge is if you learn something today, you apply it tomorrow. If it's not too complicated, you can teach it the next day. And that's the beautiful thing about learning. The podcast it's just been such a great gift to me, because I've met so many amazing people like yourself, and you tend to, I read and do a lot of research on what the person's done, or if they've read a book, and my knowledge and my memory has just gone through the roof. And you wouldn't think it, but I'll be turning 50 next year. My memory's better than it was before, which is unusual. It's normally the other way around, right?
You have to feed your mind, right? You have
to. You have to. How do you recharge after a long day at work now that you're trying to drink less wine?
How do I recharge? Just quiet. I was going to say sleep again. You'll think that I spend my time sleeping, but
How many hours of sleep? What time are you going to bed at?
just 7 hours. But knowing when is a good time for you.
You've got to program it. You've got to go to bed at the same time,
No,
ideally.
I mean more or less like between whatever, and then I love to wake up early and having that quiet time in the morning
Productive.
where you can plan your day and just enjoy, a morning coffee uninterrupted. No one's going to ask you for anything, no emails, no nothing.
Yeah.
So
That moment, because the thing is, if you're in the office after 6 o'clock, there'll be a lot of people there. But if you have that quiet time at home or in the office, really powerful. And what's the best advice that you've ever received?
the best advice would be if you don't ask for it, you won't get it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Can you tell us about any projects that are non-sensitive that you're working on inside or outside of work?
So yes, I'm trying to do more on the outcome bound side. So that's within work. So to develop that space, kind of between blend in finance and impact, because I think we need more of that in Asia and Southeast Asia. So that's some of the projects I'm working on right now, and then personal projects. So I'm super interested in longevity, nutrition. So I am studying a bit more in that space as a hobby, just to be more effective, with myself, but also with other people.
It's big.
I have a lot of friends and family members that come to me for guidance in that. I train as well as a wellness coach, but I want to tap more into the science of it.
Yeah.
So I'm super interested in that space as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, just in general, even in training or whatnot, they always think about the art of it, which sounds great, but everything is based on science first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well,
So I want to know why, if I'm taking omega-3, why I'm taking vitamin D, C, whatnot. Why I'm doing it. Creatine, you talked about it. Brain health.
I saw this BBC documentary. It was probably 15 years ago, and it was so interesting. It was there were two parts of it. So the first part was they took 10 twins, and they separated them and they put them into the forest. And one set of twins was given 3 square big meals, like in England, like you'd have big heavy meals, and the others were given 6 meals but small.
Okay.
And to see how far they would walk. And the difference was something like 10 kilometers if they had the smaller meals. And, I always say to people in terms of diet, I mean, knowing it is different from applying it, but if you have a big meal, it's like throwing a big log on top of a fire and it will burn very slowly. If you have, a small meal, it's like small twigs, and that's your metabolism and it'll burn through it.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But the other part that I found really interesting, they had black cab drivers and they changed their diet. And they introduced omegas and fish oils and the difference in the cortisol level and the stress level, So all of a sudden they were screaming at people and they want a fish diet. It came
Your
down.
mood, of course, yeah.
It's big, right? It's huge.
Yeah.
So like I try to bring fish to the office 3 days a week now. And it does help. But the other thing is it's also not to always look at the scale because muscle weighs more than fat.
Yeah.
And actually, it's how you're feeling. It's not just how you're looking. Like you see some people that have got, I remember during COVID, I got very lean. I got a 6-pack. I was down to 69, 70 kg. It was really light for me. I'm 80 now. But I actually wasn't as strong. I didn't feel that healthy. I didn't have the same energy level. So I think that's
Because you were doing more cardio, no? Or?
I was just doing a bit too much of everything. I was dieting down a little bit too much. And going back to this whole concept we've been talking about, it wasn't sustainable. I couldn't live like that.
Yeah.
And I enjoy too many things. I'm overweight now. I'm a little bit too heavy because I've had an injury and I've not been able to do everything. But, talking about energy, for me, as a business owner, doing what I do, energy is the number one thing.
Of course,
I think energy sells, and you become magnetic if you have energy. We've all met people that they're so flat, you've got to kick them to see if they're awake. And it starts with your psychology, your sleep, your diet.
Totally. And who you spend your time with.
That's a big one. That's often overlooked, right?
Yeah, avoiding toxic people, relationships, and knowing who you're,
That's not easy in the corporate world because sometimes you have to come into contact with people.
Yeah.
But
But setting boundaries, right? That's super important.
Setting boundaries is very powerful.
Yeah.
Well, Eleanor, thank you for sharing your
so
story.
much,
I've loved learning all about you. What a wonderful story.
Thanks so
you've
much
had
for the
thus far.
opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.